Welcome to week 33. Today we'll be doing our usual 16th note syncopation warm-up, although today we will be returning to the 4-line format as opposed to the 2-line format that we have been doing. We'll be checking out our last 3 half-diminished chords today, E flat, B flat, and F half-diminished, along with their Locrian scales. And then we're going to be checking out a piece I wrote today called Invention in C major. And this is another one of the stylings of J.S. Bach. And essentially what we'll be doing is weaving together 2 voices. It's a very cool style, and I'm looking forward to it after we get rhythmically warmed up. Let's get started with line 1. The metronome is going to be at 40 BPM, and it will represent the downbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, switch your hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, hands together, top line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Let's move on to line 2. We'll speed our metronome up to 45 BPM, and now the metronome will represent the upbeats. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. Now we will take a look at line 3, and for the first time in this series we will read it, our 16th note exercise, in half time, okay? So we're going to speed up technically to 50 BPM, but we're going to cut the metronome in half because we're at half time, and so the metronome will be at 25, and the clicks of the metronome will now represent the first and the third downbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then for our last line, we will speed up to 60 BPM, which means the metronome will be at 30 BPM, but now the clicks will represent the second and the fourth downbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hop on hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Now that we're warmed up, let's head back to the piano. For today's half diminished drill, we will be checking out E flat, B flat, and F minor 7 flat 5. Let's take a look on the keyboard. Let's begin with E flat minor 7 flat 5, and we'll do our inversions in the right hand first. Let's try the inversions in the left hand. And let's do one chord with two hands. And let's talk about E flat Locrian, or we could think of it as D sharp because this key is technically the T of E, all right? And E's T is D sharp. So we're gonna be playing in the key of E, but we're going to start and end on E flat instead. So let's try that with the chord in our left hand. And then we'll switch, play the chord in our right, scale in our left. Moving right along, let's check out B flat half diminished with our right hand inversions. Let's try it in our left hand. And then let's do one chord with both of our hands. Okay, and now we'll talk about B flat Locrian, which is the T of B. So again, if you want to be technical here, technically we're going to be thinking of this key as A sharp because A sharp is the T of B major. Of course, it doesn't matter because all that matters is the shape of the scale on the keys. So we're going to be playing B major, except now we'll be starting from B flat or A sharp, and we'll put the chord in our left hand. And then let's switch that around. And then last but not least, let's take a look at F minor 7 flat 5, starting with our right hand inversions. Let's try our left hand inversions. And then let's do one chord between both of our hands. And then let's talk about F Locrian. So F is going to be the T of G flat. And so we're going to be playing the G flat major scale. Except now we'll be starting on F and ending on F, and we'll be putting the chord in our left hand. It will sound like this. And then switching that around, it will sound like this. For today's reading, I wrote a piece in the style of J.S. Bach called an invention, and this particular invention is in C major. Now, we've studied a few different styles that Bach has done before. We've looked at hymns, or as Bach would call them, chorales, right? Which is where you have 4 voices. They're all generally in the same rhythm, and they're all moving horizontally, yet you can also analyze them vertically and come up with some harmony, right? We've also looked at preludes, and now we're going to look at inventions. Now, inventions are continuing the idea of multiple voices lining up to create harmony. However, in an invention, you have 2 voices that are being woven together to create harmony, right? And the thing is that in this case, neither voice is more dominant than the other. So as you can see, both of the voices are going to have quite a bit of action going on, quite a bit of melodic material. So yeah, let's dive in to what's going on here. Before we actually start looking at some harmony, let's just talk about how an invention is set up, okay? Because when you first look at something like this, it just looks like 2 very tangled pieces of spaghetti, and it's hard to make sense of, but we can actually break this down in a way that's very understandable. So the very first thing and most important part of any invention is what we call the subject, right? And so this is our little subject, and a lot of the times what's going to happen when you have an invention is it will be presented by itself in one hand, and then it will be presented again. So if you actually look at this part, we have an exact same duplicate of our subject happening in our left hand. Now they do overlap a bit and create some harmony, which we will look at in just a moment. But then what happens is, so we have the introduction of our subject, and then sort of like a mini sonata form, we're going to have a middle section that's going to give us some contrast, right? And we'll see exactly what we do with that contrast. And then we return, right? So actually you can see that the original theme has returned right here. And that is in an invention when you know that you've gotten back to the beginning, is the original subject is usually stated again in the original place that it was stated, in this case the right hand. All right, so here we have the return to our subject, and then of course we wrap it up with a little bit of an ending. All right, so this is our general form here. We have a beginning, a middle, and then we circle back around and end in a similar spot. Now, as we dive into the harmony today, I'm not going to get too into the nitty-gritty, all right? There is a lot of harmonic action here, and that's the coolest thing about inventions, is how much harmony you can actually imply with a single line, right? Or in this case, 2 lines. And so we're not going to really get into every single harmonic moment. But what we will do is talk about some important harmonic regions, all right? So the first thing we're going to see is our 1, right? And you know, within this 1, you can see our original subject is going to have quite a bit of harmony implied, but let's wait to talk about the harmony inside of this until we get to the point where we repeat the subject down here, because that will show us a little bit more about what's going on. So suffice it to say that throughout this period, we're going to have very normal harmonic motion. We're talking 1s and 5s, all right? And it's really not going to get spicy until we begin to see the key change a little bit, or being bent over here. So we're going to actually start with a secondary dominant, and we're going to start to refocus our center to the 4 for just a moment. So we have a secondary dominant that leads to the 4, and then the 4 is actually going to be used as a pivot chord to truly get to where we are wanting to go, which is the relative minor, okay? Now the relative minor of C is A. That's right. Okay, and so in order to get to A, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot from the 4 chord, or in this case that's an F, to the 2 minor 7 flat 5. See, had to throw in some half diminished there for this unit of the 6, right? So we have a secondary half diminished chord, and then of course we have a secondary dominant to the 6, and that's finally going to bring us to the 6. All right, and so that is how we did that. Now you'll notice that throughout this piece we are also going to have some pedal tones. Okay, and it's really cool because up until this point we've only really seen pedal tones in our left hand, but surprise, pedal tones can be in our right hand too, and they're very effective. Now this 6 is not a complete 6 yet because we haven't completely shifted into our minor gear yet. We're still ramping up for that. So we have that 6 with the 5 pedal tone, and that's going to last all the way until you actually do get to the center, to the meat of our minor section right here, okay? Now suffice it to say, most of the minor section is just going to be simple 1 and 5. In this case, the 5 of the minor 6, the 5 of A minor, right, is E. And so hint, hint, if you see some G sharps in there, you're probably going to be playing an E chord, in which case that means that that's the 5 of that 6 that we are on, right? But as we transition back to our major, right, because we know that our theme is going to re-enter right here. And so let's see how we got there. First, we can notice this C sharp hanging out right here. All right, so we've got some stepping outside of the key just a bit with some secondary chords. So what we're going to have is the 5 of the 2, and then we're going to get to the 2. Now, why would we do the 5 of the 2? I think that, of course, you know, the secondary dominants sound great, but in this case, the 5 of the 2 is a very cool chord because if the 2 of C major is D or D minor, right, then the 5 of D is A, right? And so what is really cool about that connection is that we have been in A minor, and suddenly we're going to simply make A minor into A major, and then that's going to allow us to launch back into a 2-5-1, right? And so there's our 2, here's our 5. We do have a little bit of a 1 and then a 5 again. Actually, it's more like a 1 over a 5, also known as a 1-6-4. But nonetheless, that brings us back to our 1. Now, I said that when we got to this point, we would speak a little bit about some of the harmony that's implied in this line, because now you can see I did add a counter bass line to that, and it kind of clarifies what the harmony of our subject is. And there's a lot on every beat, right? Just like in the tradition of Bach. So we have our 1, our 5, this is a 4 right here, back to a 5, and then back to a 1. As we move on, another place of interest is going to be another secondary dominant chord, and we'll be looking at the 5-7 of the 4. All right, now, I think it was important to do that there, right? It's like I didn't necessarily have to use another secondary dominant, the 5-7 to the 4, the 5-7 of the 4 to the 4, but the reason I did that is because, like I've always said, if you're going to use something in a composition that's a little out there or noteworthy, it's usually a good idea to use it more than once, right? Because repetition legitimizes your ideas, and so we don't want to just throw this idea out after we use it one time. We want to hint back at it again when we're wrapping things up to say, hey, you know, we didn't forget about that either, all right? And then continuing on, that simply leads us to a 5, and then we have our 1, and of course, you know, we'll have our 1-5 motion, wrapping this whole piece up, ending, of course, on the 1, and so that is the harmony of interest happening within this piece. One more note on learning the invention in C major and just learning inventions in general. Sometimes when we see 16th notes, our brains think to ourselves, that means go fast, right? So now I have to play this fast. And that can make learning inventions, especially if you don't have very much experience learning inventions, very difficult, right? If you can't slow down and look at these notes, right? So the composer's command here is that please, if you are new to inventions, please do yourself a favor And try to read this at 30 BPM before you try anything else, all right? With a metronome to make sure that you are actually staying at 30 BPM. Now here's the thing, it's gonna feel painfully slow at first. It's gonna be like, oh, this is so slow, it's so boring. But trust me, once you actually start getting those two hands together, you will be very thankful that you're going at 30 BPM, all right? Today, as I perform this, I'm not gonna go very much faster. Of course, you're invited to play this as fast or slow as you want. I have had one day to look at this piece, and even though I'm the composer, inventions are tough, right? And so I'm going to take this at a comfortable tempo on the keyboard. Let's take a look. If you enjoyed today's lesson, you can show your support for the Piano Dojo by finding today's music, show notes, and much more on my website, pianodojo.com, or simply subscribe and share this channel with anybody who's looking for answers about the piano. Until next time, happy practicing.